Welcome everyone to episode 7 of Cosmic Collab. As usual, I'm your host, Olivier from Auptimate, and today I am joined by Alex Miller of Particle Alliance and Ivy Russell of Bangladesh Angel Network. Ivy, Alex, I'm very happy to have you today. So this is going to be a slightly different type of podcast where I have two interviewees and that will share their experiences and what they're currently working on. So I'm really excited to talk about collaboration actually today. So it's quite topical. And we'll just kick off by just asking our usual question. So Ivy, Alex, I guess in this order, can you quickly introduce yourself and maybe share about your journey as in the field of becoming a syndicate lead and syndicating investments for early stage startups?
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Oliver, for having us. And hi, everyone. So my journey in the syndicate space is very new. I myself has joined as a CEO of Band Bangladesh Angels about 2.5 months ago. But I think prior to that, some of the experiences I've had, is helping me in this new journey, which is I myself is a VC with two of my other partners based in the US. So we are kind of like a micro check model where we write very small checks to startups. Three of us being founders ourselves, we kind of understand where the startups struggle, where they might miss some opportunities. So that has been quite interesting. We started around February this year, and we've already made 6 investments in the region of Southeast Asia and South Asia. And then prior to that, I ran a startup myself in healthcare space called Maya. It's a digital well-being assistant platform, which grew from Bangladesh to Sri Lanka to Pakistan and then exited into a local pharmaceutical company. And then prior to that, I was just my corporate career has been in hedge funds and investment management. So yeah, so the world of syndicate and running a syndicate while being new, I think there's a lot of like nuances that kind of fit into some of the things we see in the daily investment world. So I'm glad to be here to be talking about some of the challenges or the rewards, maybe even doing it in a collaborative way.
That's so cool. So myself, I come from like a much more less structured background. I grew up like a computer hacker and like got kicked out of high school and like illegally downloaded every piece of software ever made for Macintosh before the year 2004. Then I went to China in 2001 actually, and I was a writer and a photographer and a travel and I taught English, and I started a bunch of different things like a travel agency and just did all sorts of wacky stuff. And then because I was a programmer in high school, I became a programmer again, and then I became a product manager, and I joined some Chinese startups, one of which had an IPO. It was like the Facebook of China. We had an IPO in 2011 on the New York Stock Exchange. Was kind of one of the bigger IPOs of that kind of early heady China coming out era. So I guess I had fallen in love with China and lived in China for 11 years. So I've been in Asia for like 20 years since 2000. And I went after the IPO. I went to Silicon Valley with my own startup, and I joined 500 startups after we blew up. And then I just did a bunch more startup stuff as an operator, as a head of product, as a CTO. I just always loved working at that early stage. I made it to that later stage a few times. And started a couple of companies, and now I've been with Accelerating Asia, which is an early stage VC. We invest in 10 startups twice a year, approximately. We write 100K checks, and I run a accelerator program for like 14 weeks for these startups. And then a bunch of years later, I got a call. I was surfing. I was like dripping wet. I got a call, and they said, "Hey, you want to join this accelerator and teach this accelerator program?" And I was like, "Dude, that sounds like so much fun." I'd taken a year off when my daughter was born, and I was like, "Okay, cool." Like I was programming on the side. Now I can like help some startups again. And so that was really fun. And then immediately I wanted to write checks. So that first year I wrote a check into GiftPack. I wrote a check into MedEasy. MedEasy, I wrote a check their revenue was $4,000 at the time per month. And now it's $330,000. And it's just been like 3 years. So I've been writing checks consistently. And then I had a call with an angel guy who was running with Brian from Teen Ignite Ventures, and he was running a bunch of syndicates, and I really love that idea of being able to raise more money than my tiny check. I was writing like $2,000 checks, like because I'm already their mentor, and they're like, all right, like we know this guy who's been teaching us stuff for 14 weeks, like we'll let him on the cap table. So I love this idea of doing syndication, and then I spoke to Craig, our GP, about it, and Craig said, hey, why don't you do syndication with Osman, one of our LPs? And so we kicked off the Particle Alliance, and we invested in Fulfilly right away. And now we've done Orco, and then I worked with another group, and we did an investment into Living Roots, which is kind of closing right now. And then now I'm starting to. We just had a call an hour ago with Ivy and Bangladesh Angel Network for Pulse Tech and Chaya. So kind of very eclectic way of doing things.
Yes, I think different backgrounds, but you've both been operators. I think that makes it quite interesting. This is often what's been said to be a successful investor, and also to create good relationships with founders. It's important to understand and have been through those challenges of fundraising, of operating a business. So I want to talk a little bit more about that. How do you see yourselves? How do you create relationships with founders? What are the challenges? How do you source deals? What do you look for? Because in this environment, there are a lot of, particularly in this funding week, a lot of startups are fundraising. It's important to identify those. What are the pointers typically you look at when you decide to invest, it's not just invest in your own personal name. You are bringing in Syndicate, you're bringing other investors together, your network, to invest in these startups.
At Accelerating Asia, I review more than 1,000, maybe 1,500 startups a year, and then the accelerator invests in just 20. So as that review process, I just get used to talking to founders and kind of have started to develop a little bit of a radar. Going back in the software days, I sort of know what software products work and how people, I was around during the .com boom and bust, and how these startups can be overhyped or underhyped, and kind of get a feel for that as well. I also am a mentor at Orbit and at 500. So I have this big kind of pipeline that all these startups are coming to. And so far I've only invested in Accelerating Asia companies because I work with those founders day in and day out for 14 weeks before really making that decision. And I get the feeling for those founders that, how passionate they are about their business and where their challenges are. And if I feel like their challenges are in a place where they can excel and they can exceed those challenges, and they just need some value add here or there, then that's one of those signals. Another one is my own passion for the company, my own belief it's really about the belief in the business and the founders and the market. That makes me want to commit personally. And then when I commit personally, I look at how big the opportunity is and how risky it is. And if I feel like it's less risky, I'm more willing to offer it as a syndicate to my kind of group of friends and extended group of friends.
Ivy, Bangladesh and the Angel Network, of course, more focused geographically, if I understand quite well. And had a lot of exciting startups in Bangladesh. We've been in similar cohorts. We've also got employees in Bangladesh ourselves. So a very interesting country, and we'll talk about it, I believe, a little bit later. But so how does BAN identify and source its, likely you also see a lot of applications. Maybe you can share a little bit how the relationship is being built in that specific market.
Yeah, I think Bangladesh Angels right now is covering 60 startups in terms of not just even bringing us into our funnel, but understanding the business model, where we can help. We actually handhold them a lot in terms of understanding their North Star matrices, what are the things the investors might be looking for. And it's a very curated list of founders. It's not that anyone and everyone who applies or wants to be a part of the BAN network becomes one. So similar to Alex, not that the volume is so high, but because it has been a very Bangladesh-focused mandate, even though the volume is not that high, we do maintain a lot of criteria in terms of being a portfolio startup in Bangladesh Angel Networks, BAN. So that's number one. And I think in terms of choosing your prior question and what Alex mentioned, for me as well, being a founder for several years, I think being an EIR also helps. I'm an EIR. I was an EIR at Accelerating Asia as well as Insignia. As Alex, I used to look at the non-cohort startups who would come through special programs such as the UN and it gives you a lot of sense of reward when the founders kind of come back to you and say, oh, you've really helped me to pitch this better or explain this better or understand this. And to be honest, that gave me a kind of confidence in terms of okay, I do understand the startups, because when you're a founder yourself, because I've been in health tech, my industry, my knowledge was all health tech, right? But as a VC or an investor, you have to go broader on the market, on the verticals. And that's when the EIR experience, both from Insignia and from Accelerating Asia, really helped, because I was looking at different verticals of startups, which I had to kind of force myself to unlearn some of the things I've learned for health tech and learn for other verticals as well. And that was really interesting. So in terms of what we look for at BAN, and we have an internal kind of motto where few things is, one of them is, the founder or the team has to be solving a real problem. That's number one. And even if it's not like a real genuine problem, because Bangladesh is, as you may know, is a more like in some cases, is a replica economy for the Uber or the the pot house that have been built, or things that have worked in the West. How can they be modified and work in the East or Bangladesh? But also, like, if they're solving for even a feature or an added feature that is more applicable to the Bangladesh market, are they really solving it for solving purposes rather than just adding? So that's number one. And number two is definitely the quality of the founder. If the founder is tenacious, if the founder is coachable, because being a founder myself, I understand in some areas, us founders are known to be like dreamers and reaching out for the sky and all of that. Sometimes it's important, someone like me as well, it was important for someone to pull me down on the ground and say, hey, you're dreaming of too many things. It's great, but let's do one at a time, right? So, and then for that, you need to have a founder who's coachable, right? Who's willing to listen to those things and go phase by phase or product map versus, 1 to 4. In terms of BAN, particularly, like I said in my previous call, we facilitated a very big chunk of investments, $21.6 million US in the course of since 2018. So it's a big number that we facilitated through between 400 to 500 members, which means that we've been very actively involved in understanding where the members want understanding the seasonality of when investors invest and kind of reaching out to them. And now recently, I think what BAN is facing a challenge is, we've spoken to as many founders as we had to. We've reached out to the members. So we just got an approval to increase the mandate from just Bangladesh to Southeast Asia and South Asia. And happy to talk about that more in terms of why we are taking that decision because of some macro challenges. And happy to delve into that more later.
Very useful. I thinking maybe one day we'll do a spotlight on a specific geography. But good to hear that the BAN is also going in diversifying and going into other jurisdictions. I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about a topic that is a little bit close to heart for us, the role of tech in syndication. What's obviously, how do you see what are the biggest challenge when you do a syndicate? I mean, you've talked about having to sift through a number of different applications, finding the right founders. What about on the supply side, fundraising? What about actually the syndication itself? How easy it is, how difficult it is? What are the typical challenges you face?
Syndication is the process of getting accredited investors to see great deals and to want to invest in them and pass KYC and sign paperwork and wire money, and then getting that money over to another startup. And then in that process, you also have to set up a company in Singapore or in another jurisdiction that's well regarded. You have to set up a bank account for that company, and you also have to run pipeline calls and for my syndicates, I like to have a lot of transparency and do a Q&A call with the founders. Ivy and I just got off a call like that an hour ago, and I think there's a lot of technology. We kludge together to make the whole thing work. I've got a spreadsheet of all the people that I want to keep track of. I could use a CRM, but that might be overkill. So you have to kind of balance what's overkill and what's going to get the job done and what costs money. And because there's not much money in the upfront of syndication. You only make money when the startups succeed, right? I mean, to be fair, we do charge fees, but those fees don't. I mean, I guess they pay for a domain name registration. So we use Auptimate. We've been using Auptimate for 2 going on 5 deals. And I think that the platform allows us to, the other thing is the paperwork, the legal. And I'm not a lawyer, I'm a hacker. And so I mean, I can read the paperwork, but I can't know if those clauses are real. If you could write some clause into the paperwork and it could be illegal in some jurisdiction and I wouldn't know, right? So to be honest, I trust you, Olivier, and Brandon, and Davin from our relationship when you went through the cohort, and that legal advice that you the paperwork that you do, the KYC that you guys do, to me that's really important. The platform allows us to get everybody through KYC with relative simplicity. And of course, somebody's got an entity and they need to go through KYC, and there's a lot of communication that needs to happen. But that platform really helps. But I think knowing your way around all the tools that you have to use to bring everything together, that's actually a bit of the job. I set up a website on Google Sites that's just like running for free in the background, and use forwarding email address so I don't have to pay for like another email address that I'm not going to really use. So I think there's a lot going on here for like a part-time side gig, for me anyway.
Yeah, I would like to add on top of that I'm trying to think about how syndication, because you're talking beyond just the platform. It's also, you go on a call, you organize Google Meets, you know, how did people syndicate 20 years ago, right? It didn't happen, right?
Oh, it did. I pitched to William Balbine, who now runs Orbit Startups and SOSV. I pitched to him in 2013 with my startup. It was at a dinner event in Beijing, around a big round table, and a bunch of like older Chinese, mostly men, drinking and deciding, shall we give this young lad some money? I don't know how it works in Bangladesh. I'd love to hear that story.
It's actually very typical to what you just said. Like, you know, it's usually a dinner party at a kind of like high net worth type person's house. And I've seen actually at least 2, if not more, where, you know, people got together and a startup kind of closed right then and there at a very seed stage, around $50,000 or more. But usually the check sizes at that time, when I've seen, is they range anywhere between 50 to 100, but not more than that. I think anywhere above 100, then it becomes too much of like, you can't just like, then it becomes a very serious conversation with a lot of numbers and things that you need to see. Whereas when it's something below 100,000 and the investors are trusting the host's words for it, if you know what I mean, then it's, I've seen that happen. And I think even here, like I'm working from Singapore 1880. Here I've seen at 1880 where Mark, who's the founder here, has literally closed 5 million worth of investments. I guess that depends from country to country and the income disposable in that country. But he's closed like close to 4 to 5 million in just one dinner. So those things still happen, and it's amazing how people can just work out the back mechanics of it. And yeah, I think that's how people are still doing it. But I think having that access to tech as Auptimate is doing or Odin is doing, you know, it's good to have that so that, you know, you can work at scale for that, right? Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is that there's still, I mean, previously it was very bespoke, right? There's a trust of the host, the syndicate lead. You can let's call it this way, right? How do we see trends evolving in the next 10, 20? How do you see trends evolving in the next 10, 20 years? Will it be possible to do that without that dinner, without that physical meeting? So that was more trying to see how will it go this way. And I think in the US it has, because people just go on AngelList, they see something that's interesting, they decide to invest. They see a little bit of credibility in the syndicate lead. And a lot of FOMO, I guess, happening, and I think this is not necessarily happening that much in Asia. It's quite the opposite.
I can go first, and Alex, you can jump on any of the topics. I think it's already changing, right? Like I'm part of some of the female network as well in terms of investment, Epic Angel being one of them. And it's already happening where the whole investment process is completely automated, right? And of course, there's pros and cons to it. The pros are, I think, somewhat outweighs the cons. The pros are like you're doing your due diligence on your own time. There's no pressure, peer pressure. Sometimes what I've noticed is like, you know, you feel like you have to write a bigger check in a group of people, whereas, you know, when you're doing it in a automated way, you see the active deals. Recently, I just invested in one of the startups in Pakistan where I just invested $1,250, right? And that was like the minimum amount. And because it was a platform, I was like, okay, fine, I'll just do this and see how the company goes, and I can invest more later, right? Whereas if I was in a group of people where maybe I wouldn't even invest $1,250 because I would just feel like $1,250, like, you know, so that's already happening. And I think I see it quite often in the female network collective or angel collective is like they just like to take a bit more time on their own. I think as female investors, you are much more kind of you want to really kind of hone into your due diligence at your own pace rather than just following the crowd. That I've seen quite a few times, including myself. And I think the whole journey of where you can just go onto AngelList or Epic Angels and just click and say, okay, I commit, I review, or I want to review, I want to invest, and then commit. It's just amazing how investors can be left alone. On the other side, I think for BAN, particularly with the 600 plus members that we have, maybe it's something that we've made them used to, and we want to kind of get out of it, is they need a lot of pampering and they need a lot of like hand-holding, right? It's like, oh, are you coming to the call? Or are you doing this? Oh, let me send you this. And, you know, and sometimes you get tired of it. Like, you're like, okay, you've become a member of this community to invest and to be a part of the ecosystem, but then maybe we've been part of it. We're the ones to be blamed because we're the one who made it like that whole people focused in terms of like hand holding and all of that. And we are also trying to kind of get out of that. And we're actually building a platform which is much more automated where band members can, because it's also the time difference. Majority of our 50% of our investors or angel network is in the US, right? So it's not always useful. And just now as we hung up, few of my network people say, oh, the timing wasn't suitable because I was in Dubai, and the timing wasn't, and Alex was right, like you can't please everyone because we wanted to kind of be in the friendly time zone for US, and then we couldn't work it out for Dubai, right? So time zone and everything put together, and if you want to have the time zone and everything in your favor, you need to have this automated place where people can just log in their own time, do their own due diligence. And of course, if they have questions, Ban is there, Particle Alliance is there to answer more questions, but we definitely need to move towards that more now, I feel.
It's partly controlled by the fee structure and the regulatory regime that we live under. So if we're doing a Singapore SPV, we're only allowed 49. So we're allowed 49 investors. And then if everybody's check is 1.25K, then we're going to raise 65K max, right? So if and then the other side is so it's sort of a numbers game, right? Like if you have 50K investors, you can raise 500K. So what kind of investors do you as a syndicate lead want to go after? How much time do you want to and that's a function of like your ability, like your relationships, the people you know, your ability to do like online marketing, the regulations around online marketing that, again, you're under, like, I think as a syndicate lead, we're not allowed to go market, run Facebook ads for our deals, right? So we couldn't go get, a bunch of retail investors off the street and say, hey, everybody pile in on this one. On the other hand, I think in the US, the crowdfunding laws are a little bit more friendly, but the capital gains taxes are affecting all syndicate people. Well, in Singapore, the capital gains taxes are affecting like Americans, I look forward to finding more out about that as my exits start to happen. But I think, that's all about the regimes that we have to live under. And so so also like that numbers game is how are you going to go do market? How are you going to go acquire these syndicate members? Are you going to go slowly build a network of people who can write 5 and 10K checks? You're going to go quickly build a net, like go quickly and like find a bunch of family offices, or that that's going to be much slower. Or you're going to go online platform and have hundreds of people. If you have hundreds of people, then you send out an email and then the people come in, right? So it's all about how you choose to go about doing that.
Just because I'm conscious that Ivy needs to leave us soon, I wanted to have the opportunity maybe to talk about the collaboration, right? So two different syndicates looking at very different angles. How did you come about to collaborate? How do you see this? Is it a one-off? Is it something with a more strategy? Because we're quite interested in seeing this happen more and more. Syndicates coming together and making sure they get like a more substantial ticket. Ivy, maybe.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I think this was a really good experience because I think one of the first principles from my side in terms of working on a syndicate is this trust and transparency. So I think both Particle Alliance and BAN had that, and the trust was there.
We know each other going back. I'll just say we know each other going back. I trusted you. I wanted to.
Yeah. Exactly.
We had that before.
Yeah. Pitched my startup to Alex back in my startup days. So yeah, that I think is very important, and I think it'll be important for every partnership or syndicate that anyone does. That's number one. Number two, I think as soon as I mentioned it to my members group, they've all been like, I've been telling BAN to do these partnerships for so long. Do 2 accelerators or 2 networks doing it together makes so much sense with fees and everything, and also the joint effort that you have to create, right? Like, if we write, and then you're tapping into 2 sets of network, right? So there's Particle Alliance network and there's BAN's network. And to be honest, it was just so simplified. And I think BAN, who's worked at a more like a crowdsourcing type of platform where, okay, this is the startup, we have 5 people interested, we raise like, 100,000 out of these 5s, rather than trying to kind of do it in a more formal way where you have those startups there, you have the questions, and then in terms of the syndicate fee or the setup fee, you can split the fee, which is high, and at the same time also the due diligence becomes like, I think everything is split into half, and I think definitely there's so much more that we can do, and this is definitely one of the first that we'll be doing quite a few hopefully next year as well, with just a impact vertical or a climate vertical. So I think it makes so much more sense for two accelerators or two networks to join together and try and see how that works. To me, it was a lot of learning this time. And yeah, like I said, I will be also definitely pushing for more next time, because this was more like, okay, let's see how it goes. Let's see how the members react, because our model is very much based on how the members wanted, and the members were very positive in this one. So hopefully we can run more.
For me, I've been curious about how to do this for a long time. I've been, like my network's not that big. Mostly it's founders. It's lots and lots and lots and lots of founders. So how do I, as a new syndicate lead, this is my fourth and fifth deal, right? How do I, as a new syndicate lead, build this network where we can go close an amount of money that's meaningful to the founders? That was my question. And I said, that was first question. My second question is, wow, I've got 2 startups that I want to fund right away. And then I've got more startups that I want to fund after that. And they're all in this domain. And then I'm like, wait a sec. Ivy knows this domain really well. She's got a big network of people that are interested in this type of startup. And I've got a decent network. And if we can, I'm confident I can close 120K per deal, right? But we've got more allocation than that. So how do we maximize this opportunity for the startups? So I'm like, okay, let me reach out to Ivy and see if we can make this thing happen. And then we can, because Ivy's Bangladesh Angel Network, we've got 2 Bangladesh startups. Ivy's med tech background or health tech background. We've got 2 health tech startups. What if we do the Bangladesh Bangladesh 2.0, because they've recently had a rebranding of that country after Muhammad Yunus, the Nobel Prize winner, becomes the new temporary prime minister, interim prime minister. This is going to be a new big thing. Let's get together. Let's bring all the Bangladesh angels together. Let's bring the Accelerating Asia companies together. Let's bring the Particle Alliance in and make alliances. Mm-hmm. And go do this thing. So that was why I reached out to Ivy, and I'm so happy I did. She's been a dream to work with. We've had we put this together in 2 weeks.
Yeah,
less than 2 weeks. We made the decision. I called you. Mm-hmm. You said yes, right? It was that fast.
Another just quick 2 things that Alex has motivated me into it is, number one is a conviction in the founders. You've got to have that. Otherwise, and the minute after Alex told me, and the minute I spoke to Kazi and Shaun, I was like, and then that's when I said yes, let's do it. You've got to have that. And the second thing, which I thought was quite nicely put from Alex's side, was, telling the founders, anything that is less than 50, bring it to us. Anything that is more than 50, you guys can handle it. And I think that is something that is such a load off from founders, because founders don't have time. I've been a founder myself, to go into each of them doing 10K, 5K, 25K, and, doing the same type of paperwork and writing. So if a syndicate joined together can handle that for them on that less than 50K kind of thing, which is very important. I remember my first check into my startup, Maya, was $48,000 and that gave me a runway of 10 months, right? So at the beginning of your startup, having a 50,000 in your account is huge, because your burn is $5,000-$6,000 that gives you that. So I think those
suddenly you're alive, right? Suddenly you can buy stuff.
Exactly. So you're alive for 10 months. That's amazing. So I think that is a huge thing for early stage startups and having the conviction. So yeah, with that I will I'll have to leave, but it was really lovely speaking to you, Olivier. I'm actually meeting one of your team members this week to set up all the automation stuff we talked about. So great job on Auptimate. Really looking forward to what more you have in the bag to offer. But thank you for having me. Thanks, Alex.
Thanks, Ivy.
Thanks, Ivy. Very, very useful. On the back of what Ivy said, Alex, I think that the 2 big learnings, and I think this is something we've been thinking about, is one, how to improve collaboration between syndicate leads, particularly in Southeast Asia, where it's not such a rampant model as it is in other countries, and where indeed you have a number of people that can maybe corral 100, 150K. They could, if all their investors would invest in every deal, corral more, but we all know that it's not necessarily the case, right? So how do we improve this collaboration? We heard exactly what made it work in your situation was the trust, right? The knowledge, the fact that so how to improve trust between syndicate leads. The second thing that I found quite interesting in what Ivy was just saying was the fact that you could go with the startup founders and say, hey, anything on lower than that amount, put them in the syndicate. All right, your LP might pay a little bit of a fee, but they'll be taken care of in a good manner and so on and so forth. So these are 2 things that I'd like to have your take on that, to see also how we could help with that.
Okay, so the first one was quite interesting, because this is one of those things that actually the Auptimate platform enables us to do. is to calculate the carry dynamically and to calculate the fees dynamically.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a spreadsheet. She brought those people. I brought these people. And then in the end, we're going to be like, all right, so she needs to get this many fees. I need to get that many fees. And we're going to just kind of finagle it into the Auptimate platform. And it's going to work because we can say this, this carry partner gets that much carry, that carry partner gets that much carry, and it's going to work. So I trusted the platform to do that. If I had to have a lawyer do that, it would probably cost me like $1,000. At least.
Yeah, but beyond that, I would say it's beyond the platform element of things, as you still need to have two syndicate leads that see eye to eye, will know that they'll sort things out and so on and so forth. It's not necessarily
that happens because we know each other for a couple of years now. She was an EIR at Accelerating Asia. I'm an EIR at Accelerating Asia. So we've got a mutual trust. We've both believe in Bangladesh. We both want to make some money. We both want to invest in more Bangladeshi health tech startups. I think the incentives are really aligned. That's the weird thing, though, because I had a lot of calls, or mostly like LinkedIn text message chats, and some calls with other like angel people, and they're like very these are my deals, those are your deals. And I called Particle Alliance because I want to make allies for the startups. Yeah. And the particle part is because these are startups that come out of accelerator programs. Particle accelerators are where elementary particles are smashed together and create like massive reactions, right? So, it's a weird, hard to remember name, but it's got its symbolism there. So we wanted to do that from the beginning. We just didn't find partners who were like, hey, this is the model. And so what actually made it come together was a whiteboard. I drew up the carry and the fees, and I said, this much carry for us, this much carry for you, this much fees for us, this much fees for you. You bring those people, you get this much. And then everybody's like, okay, I see how I can make money and how you can make money and how Auptimate gets the slice, and we're all good. Yeah. And that was simple, and that enabled the whole deal. So it's all about just thinking about who get like the incentives and trying to make the incentives just as dirt simple as you can. Write them down, make it simple. If it looks like a complicated diagram, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you spot on, right? Incentives need to be aligned. Actually, it's not just in syndication; it's everywhere in the company and all of that. So everybody needs to be somewhat on the same page. It's difficult when you have different types of incentives. But yes, the idea is we want more funding in that startup. Investors want to have more exposure to it. Everybody wants to save time across the board. Startup founders don't want to go on 10, 15, 20 different calls, explaining the same thing, tackling bespoke questions, not knowing really what the outcomes are. And I think the ability to push small investors in a syndicate also says, look, the terms are not negotiable. That's the syndicate that is organizing it. You want negotiable terms, you want a better, you want a different clause and blah, blah, blah. Well,
write a big check.
Write a big check. You don't want to pay fees to have access to this opportunity? Pay a big check, right?
And then I'll happily connect you too, right? Yeah. So that thing goes both ways. That's also a nice part about it.
So I think that's right. I want to just touch on another couple of questions. Differentiation of syndicates. Has this ever been an issue in your journey? Do you think investors are confused, don't know what syndicate stand for? We talked about it's still kind of a people's business. It's your network and all of that. But is it something that's really important to go out there and have a real calling card? This is a syndicate for that, or is it more?
I just had a call with Ankit from A2D.
Yeah,
they're really successful syndicate. They run a lot of deals. I also, really respect Brian from Team Ignite Ventures. They're running like a syndicate a week, and I think those syndicates, they go out there and they do a lot of deals and they vet a lot of stuff, and that's really good. Like I think those guys are really the successes in the field, and I really look up to them. And I think if I'm an investor, I want to go with people who know what they're doing. Part of why I know what I'm doing is because I have like this unique bespoke deal flow that only comes from the accelerators. We get valuations from like 6 months ago. Companies are growing really fast. And so that's why people trust me. I think they see me investing my own money along as well, and they trust that. And I think they trust Ankit because he sees so many deals. He's been doing venture deals for 13 years. They trust Brian because he's been doing venture deals for so long, because he comes from Amazon, from AWS background, doing AI deals. He's got unique deal flow from YC, from Y Combinator. So I think absolutely building a brand is important. Probably I wouldn't be here today if I didn't think so.
Yeah. I think.
And thank you, by the way, for inviting me. I really appreciate that.
All right, I think we can stop here. So this was Cosmic Collab episode 7. Had a pleasure to have Alex from Particle Alliance and Ivy from Bangladesh and Angel Network. See you on next episode next month then. Bye.
Thank you, Olivier. Great to see you again.